Welcome learners and math lovers in the series of videos on topology. We are dealing with connected spaces, right? And in the last video, we have talked about the product of two connected spaces. We proved that the product of two connected spaces is also a connected space. Okay. Now today in this video, we will talk about intermediate value theorem and some examples. Okay. So intermediate value theorem. Okay, so for that, let us take a topological space X. It's a theorem. So let X be a connected space. Let X be a connected space. Let me first state this. I will explain how and what it means. And let us take a function f from X to R. Okay, X is a topological space. We are taking a function f from X to R. Let us take this f to be a continuous function. So let f from X to R be continuous. Okay, if you take 2 points in X, the domain, let x1 comma x2 belongs to X domain such that f at x1 is less than or equals to f at, we can compare this f at x1 and f at x2 because this f at x1 and f at x2 will be in R, and because of law of trichotomy we can compare this two. Either they will be equal, or maybe f at x1 is less than f at x2, or f at x1 is greater than f at x2. But in X we may not be able to compare these elements, right? Less than or equals to. Now if you have a point T in R such that it lies between f at x1 and f at x2, then there exists some point in the domain x in X such that f at x is equals to T. What it means is if you take any 2 points in the domain, and assuming that f at x1 is less than or equals to f at x2, and if you take any point in between these 2 points, in between these two images, then you are saying that it will have a pre-image. That means it will have a point in the domain which is mapped to that point. So in this case we have taken some T belongs to R such that it is in between f at x1 and f at x2. We have taken this to be T, and we are saying that there is a point X in X, that is the domain, which is mapped to T. And we can easily prove this by using the connected some theorems what we have proved till now. The main thing over here is X is connected. Okay, if X is not connected, then these things may not hold. You cannot say anything with surety. Okay, and proof is very simple, just 2-3 lines. So let's do this proof. Let me with some color. Now this is our hypothesis: X is connected and f is a continuous function from X to R, and this thing happens. Okay, and this is our conclusion. So let us take a few points before proceeding. We know that if A is a subset of R, then A is connected if and only if A is an interval. This is the first point. And the second point, f is a continuous function, X is connected, then f at X will be connected. That is, continuous image of a connected space is connected. Okay, if it's onto function, then f at X will be equals to whole of R. That is, domain is same as, codomain is same as the range. Otherwise, the codomain, that is f of X, will be inside R. And since it is f at X will be the subset of R, it has to be an interval. And then we will use the definition of interval, and we are done with this theorem. Okay. So let's prove this. Since X is connected and f is continuous function, continuous function. This implies f at x is connected. The range space is connected. Connected subset of R. Hence fx is an interval, because we already proved that the connected subsets of R are intervals. Okay, it's already, the video will be in the playlist, you can go through the video. Hence fx is an interval. Okay, now if you see, we have taken x1 x2 belongs to the domain, and f at x1 is less than or equals to f at x2. So if you take any points in this, so this implies, if you take the closed interval including f at x1 and f at x2, this will be subset of f at x, because f at x is an interval, and f at x1, f at x2 will belongs to fx. So if you take this interval, it will be inside fx. Okay, and since this belongs, this is subset of fx, and since f at x1 is less than or equals to t less than or equals to fx2, this implies t is in this interval, and this implies t will be in the fx, implies t will belongs to fx. What does that mean? T is in the range, and since t belongs to fx, that means there is a point in x which is mapped to t, otherwise it cannot belongs to fx. This implies there exists some x belonging to the domain x such that f at x is equals to t, right? And this is what we wanted to prove. What we have started with is this, we have taken some t, we have taken in between, and we proved that there exists some x such that f at x is equals to t, and this completes our intermediate value theorem. Okay, another point, if you see in R, we just draw R. Let's take this R. Straight line. Consider this R. Now this is our domain, and this is our codomain, right? Let us take a function from R to R. Now suppose we have some x such that f at x is negative or positive. F at x is positive, and this is x, and f at x, this is f at x. We have another point, say y, and let us consider that f at y to be negative. This is f at y, right? Somewhere here. And suppose f is continuous, then obviously it will be something like this, or maybe some other things. But since it will be the interval, f at x will be an interval, I mean the point which joins f at x comma f at y, the interval like this. This will be an interval. That means it will assume all the values in between this f at x1 and f at x2. Sorry, f at x and f at y. And since f at x and f at y are of opposite sign, obviously 0 will be in the interval f at x comma f at y. And since 0 is in that, by using this previous theorem, we can say that by using the intermediate value theorem, we see that there exists some x in the domain which is mapped to 0. This will be the point in the domain which is mapped to 0. Okay, and that means we will have a root in that system. So always remember that if there are 2 points such that f at x into f at y will be negative, that is one of them is negative, then there is a point in the domain which is mapped to 0. Okay, so let's take that as an example. If f is a function from R to R is continuous such that they are of opposite signs. Say if you take 2 points, f at x into f at y is negative, so it can be like fx is positive, fy is negative, or fy is negative, fx is negative, fy is positive. This happens for some points x and y in the domain. Then let's say there will be the point in R domain z, z belonging to R, such that this z f at z will be equal to 0. That means there is a point in the domain which is mapped to 0, because 0 will be in the interval or the set of the closed interval fx comma fy. Okay, this completes this simple observation. Another way we can go ahead. In fact, we need not have this topological space and intermediate theorem maybe. So for this will help you in your exams as well, if you are answering your NET or SAT or any other entrance exam like GATE and so on. So this simple observation, let me just tell you that if fx is a polynomial, say of degree n, say x is to n plus a1 x is to n minus 1 plus say an, which is the last constant term, and if n is odd, then we can conclude that then there exists some alpha belonging to R such that f at alpha is equals to 0. Okay, not as a topological thing, but I can tell you why it is so. Since n is odd, and by the principle, by the fundamental theorem we say that this is the nth degree polynomial. If you take the equation of this, this will have n roots, right? And we also note that another fact, that if complex number z is the root of this equation, then obviously its conjugate is also the root of this equation. So if z is the root, then z bar is the root, right? So possibly you may have 2n, that is the even number of complex roots, plus you have one more. So only choice for that one more will be the real one, and hence there exists some real number such that f at alpha equals to 0, right? Again, very important, understand the quantifiers. There exists for all. Here we say that there exists some alpha belongs to R. How many we are not said. We are not said there exists unique, right? That means you may have a equation, you may have a polynomial which has say all real roots. Okay, so we are not talked about anything about the how many real roots it will have, but there is one thing guaranteed, that it will have a real root. Okay, another we can go for the vector spaces, and we can state that by using this example, we can say that if f is a function from V to V with a vector space, is linear map, linear transformation, and if dimension of V, that is the domain, is odd, then f has a real eigenvalue. Okay, if time permits, we will have more videos on linear algebra, but for the time being we will assume that you know what are the eigenvalues, eigenvectors, we know what are the linear maps and so on. Now what happens here is dimension of V is odd, right? And if you want to go for the real eigenvalues, we are finding the determinant of a minus lambda I. We put this is equals to 0, right, and find the values of lambda, and those values of lambda are called the eigenvalues. Now what happens here is, since V is of odd dimension, this will be the polynomial of odd degree, and since this is the polynomial of odd degree, by using the previous example we can say that it will have at least one real root, and that real root is called the eigenvalue, right? This you can write. And if we go for the matrix space, this one matrices, GLNR and SLNR. First, let me put what is GLNR here. Example, GLNR, general linear, so it forms a group. This is set of all the matrices of order M. So let me write M and R. This means set of all n by n matrices with real entries. And GLNR means it's those elements from MNR such that A is non-singular. Non-singular means determinant of A, that is determinant of A is not equal to 0. Okay. Now we need to check. Okay, we already stated that GLNR is homeomorphic to the space Mn. If you take all the Mn matrices, we have already given the transformation, the function, right? M and R. Say if you have set of all M by n matrices A, B, C, D. If you take 2 by 2 matrix A, B, C, D, then you can define a function which will take this to A, B, first row, then second row, then third and so on. So this will be homeomorphic to Rn, and this is a subset of Rn square, right? N by n, n into n, that is Rn square. We need to check whether GLNR is connected as a subset of this or not. And for this we will use connectedness. Okay, this GLNR is not connected. Why? This is because if possible, suppose GLNR is connected. Okay, so suppose GL and R is connected. Suppose this is connected. And we already stated earlier in the previous videos that determinant is a continuous function, right? Consider function f from say GL and R to R defined by say f at A is equals to determinant of A, right? It will take a matrix to its determinant. Now f is continuous, right? Determinant is a continuous function. F is continuous, right? And then we can claim that we can prove the claim to this claim f of the domain, that is your range set, is nothing but all the real numbers except you remove 0, right? Because none of the matrix over here will be mapped to 0, because we are taking all those non-zero, all those matrices whose determinant is not equal to 0. So it will be non-zero element, so it will be a subset of R with removing 0 from R, right? Now since we assume that GLNR is connected, since GL and R is connected, imply and f is continuous and f is continuous implies f of G, L and R is connected. This implies R difference singleton 0 is connected, which is a contradiction. Connected. This is contradiction. Why this is contradiction? Analyze. Right? R difference singleton 0, we are saying that it's connected, and this gives a contradiction, and hence G, L and R is not connected. Okay, so G, L and R is not connected. Even on the similar grounds, if you go further, we can see that, or we can check that S, L and R, there is a special linear group. This is set of all the matrices for the n or square matrices belonging to M and R, such that determinant of A is equals to 1. We can check whether this SLNR is connected subspace subset or not. Okay, so you can see another examples as well. So let's stop here for this intermediate value theorem. In the next video, we will talk about the connected spaces, which are especially like a path connected space. So first, we'll define what is a path in the topological space, and then we will define a path connected space. If time permits, we will prove that a path connected space is always a connected space. Okay, but ulta is not true. The converse of this is true is not true. Okay, so see you in the next video. Till then, stay tuned.